My name is Karen Mathers Dodd, and if I'm being honest, I knew the moment I accepted that wedding invitation that I was walking into a room designed to make me feel small. The ballroom looked like something torn from a magazine, vaulted ceilings dripping with crystal chandeliers, flowers cascading in arrangements that cost more than some people's rent, and strings of golden lights meant to feel romantic, but instead felt rehearsed. Champagne glasses floated through the crowd on silver trays. Laughter rose and fell in practiced waves. Like everyone had agreed beforehand on when to perform happiness. Everything glittered. Everything gleamed. It was my sister Issa's wedding, the crowning achievement of my parents' favorite story. Their proof that our family had made it. And me? I was the footnote who showed up in navy. I hadn't even made it 10 steps past the entrance before I heard her voice. Karen. Issa's voice sliced through the crowd like a blade wrapped in silk. She turned, radiant in her gown, every hair in place, every movement calculated like the room had been built around her. The way a frame is built around a portrait. Her eyes swept over me from shoes to shoulders, and then she smiled. The kind of smile that's designed to sting. "Oh good, you made it," she said. "I was worried security might confuse you with the catering staff." A ripple of laughter passed through her circle, soft, polite, eager laughter. Her bridesmaid pressed a hand to her mouth like she was scandalized by the joke. My mother stood 3 feet away and didn't blink. I gave Issa a small smile, measured, careful, and kept walking. My place card was exactly where I expected it to be, near the kitchen doors, tucked behind a potted fern tall enough to obscure my view of the head table, close enough to the service corridor that I could hear plates clinking and servers whispering as they lined up for the next course. It was familiar. The family tradition continued, Issa at the center, me at the edges. They expected me to do what I always did: sit quietly, absorb the humiliation, and act grateful for being invited at all. What they didn't know was this: half the people in that ballroom were still employed because of decisions I had made, and the man Issa had just married, his family's empire had been days away from total collapse last year. The person who prevented that wasn't seated at the head table. She was sitting by the kitchen. And in a few minutes, every person in that room would finally understand who I really was. Growing up, people loved comparing Issa and me like we were a before and after photo. Except I was always the before. Issa was the bright one, the charmer, the girl who could walk into any room and make adults lean in, like she was sprinkling gold dust into the air. Teachers forgave her mistakes before she made them. Neighbors praised her smile like it was a public service. My parents treated her every achievement like a national holiday worth celebrating. Every recital, every ribbon, every tiny accomplishment, confetti and applause. Me? I learned early how to be convenient. I became the easy child, the one who didn't demand attention, the one who didn't make things difficult. I did well in school, kept my head down, solved my own problems. When your family rewards volume, you either become louder or you learn to disappear. For a while, I convinced myself that invisibility was freedom. No one watched me too closely. No one interfered with my choices. I could build a life without commentary or criticism. So I did. I studied finance, graduated early, moved to New York, worked brutal hours in offices where daylight was a rumor. I learned to read numbers the way other people read faces. What's real? What's hidden? What's about to collapse under pressure? And the strange part, my family barely noticed. When I got promoted, no one asked what I actually did. When I started traveling internationally for work, no one wondered how I afforded it. They assumed I was doing fine. The way you assume a houseplant is alive as long as it's still standing in the corner. Issa, meanwhile, lived loudly. Art school in Milan. My father paid the tuition and called it investing in her spirit. New boyfriends appeared and vanished. Gallery openings. Carefully angled photos posted online like curated museum exhibits. When the 2009 crash hit and I got laid off, I called home hoping for comfort. Just a familiar voice. Something soft to land on. My mother said, "You'll figure it out. You're smart." Then she handed the phone to Issa, who told me about a sculptor she'd met at a gallery who just understood her on a molecular level. That was the pattern. Issa's life was a story everyone wanted to hear. Mine was background static. So I stopped trying to narrate it for them. By 32, I launched my own firm, Mathers Consulting. Quiet corporate restructuring, private engagements, sensitive cases. The kind of work where companies don't want headlines, they want results delivered in silence. My family never asked how I pulled it off. They didn't ask about the brownstone I purchased in Brooklyn. They didn't wonder why my name started appearing in rooms I never posted about online. They kept me in the box they'd built years ago. Karen, the practical one. Karen, the single one. Karen, the sister who never quite bloomed. Then Issa got engaged. She didn't call. She sent an email. Wedding March 3rd. Hope you can make it. Details to follow. No warmth. No excitement. Not even a proper signature. I almost didn't go. But there was a quiet, stubborn part of me still hopeful. Still foolishly human that wondered if maybe this time would be different. It wasn't. A year before the wedding, a referral came through one of my private channels, one of those messages. That's only a few lines long because the real details are too sensitive to type. Family-owned logistics firm. Serious distress. Full NDA. Discretion required. That was my world. The paperwork arrived the next morning. I scanned the company name and my hand paused over the page. Wittridge and Company. Old money. Old reputation. A legacy business that wealthy people like to mention at charity galas, as if the name itself conferred nobility. But when I opened their financials, the legacy wasn't a crown. It was a cracked foundation barely holding up a crumbling mansion. Over-leveraged assets. Subsidiaries hemorrhaging cash. Lawsuits circling like vultures. Debt stacked so high that one wrong move would send the whole structure tumbling. They weren't experiencing a rough patch. They were weeks away from a collapse no one in that family would ever recover from. The CEO was Malcolm Wittridge. I didn't know then that Malcolm had a son named Derek. And I certainly didn't know that Derek was lying beside my sister every night, telling her she was the best thing that had ever happened to him. Malcolm never contacted me directly. He didn't need to. In work like mine, you operate through legal counsel and chief financial officers people, trained to speak in careful language because their careers depend on stability and discretion. My assignment was straightforward. Stop the bleeding. Rebuild the structure. Keep it invisible. So I did. First, I shut down their European expansion and expensive vanity project disguised as growth strategy. Then I separated their operations into two distinct holdings, isolating risk the way a surgeon isolates infection before it spreads. I renegotiated debt terms with 3 separate lenders, forced discipline into their cash flow, and quietly dismantled several family legacy positions that were draining millions annually. It wasn't glamorous work. It was precise. 6 months in, they stopped free-falling. 9 months in, the circling lawsuits were settled quietly out of court. At the 1-year mark, their numbers had stabilized enough for Malcolm to walk away from merger negotiations. He didn't want to sell his grandfather's legacy. He just needed someone to stop it from collapsing. While everyone around him panicked and pointed fingers. One evening, a message reached my office through his legal team. Whoever designed this plan, thank you. You saved us. I didn't reply. That's not how my work operates. But I respected him. Malcolm listened. He moved quickly when movement was required. No ego theatrics. No tantrums. No denial. He did what wealthy men with old family names rarely do. He accepted reality and acted accordingly. 3 months later, Issa's engagement announcement appeared in the family group chat. A photograph of her hand resting on a man's suit sleeve. A diamond ring catching the light. A caption drowning in heart emojis. Derek Whitridge. My stomach dropped, not from fear, not from jealousy, from the sheer weight of the irony. My sister was marrying into the very family I had quietly rescued from ruin, and not a single person at that wedding would ever know it, because no one had ever bothered to ask who I really was. The venue was a vineyard estate outside Charleston, white roses climbing stone walls, terraces overlooking rolling green hills. The kind of place that radiates wealth even when the lights go dark. I arrived early. Old habit. The usher checked my name like it might be misspelled and directed me toward a side entrance. My assigned seat, table 19, extended family and distant acquaintances. Near the kitchen doors. Again. Cocktail are dissolved into a blur of polite nods and glittering small talk. Derek offered me a brief handshake, pleasant, distant, like greeting a colleague whose name he couldn't quite place. Issa made sure to find me. Karen, she said brightly, tilting her head, you look so comfortable. I'm genuinely impressed you made the effort. Her friends laughed. That same practice cruelty polished enough to deny later, sharp enough to draw blood now. Dinner arrived in elegant courses. Toast followed like clockwork. My father stood first. He told a long, winding story about Issa always being the star of our family. My mother added something about knowing your worth and never settling for her. Less than you deserve, gazing at Issa like she had personally invented the concept of ambition. Then Issa's maid of honor rose, champagne glass held high. Some people peak early, she announced. Some people take years to find themselves. But Issa was born in full color while the rest of us were still sketching in pencil. She paused, tilting her head toward my table. Karen, do you remember when Issa used to make you carry all her bags around like her personal assistant? She laughed, honestly, looking at tonight's seating chart. Not much has changed. Laughter rolled through the room. Even Derek smiled a quick, reflexive smile, like he hadn't quite registered what he was endorsing. I sat perfectly still. Here's the thing about being underestimated your entire life. You learn to hold your face steady, while your insides take detailed notes. Then Issa stood. She raised her glass, glowing, gracious, victorious. To love, she declared, to new beginnings, and to family, especially the members who show up even when they've been distant. Her eyes found mine across the room, and to the people who prefer living in the shadows. She added sweetly, but still managed to stumble into the light when it matters. She smiled, all teeth. We're so glad you could make it, Karen. My hands remained folded in my lap. My expression didn't shift. They believed that moment belonged to her. That was always the problem. They believed every moment belonged to her. Then a chair scraped against marble at the head table. Malcolm Wittridge stood. No smile. No raised glass. No performance. He cleared his throat once, and the room fell silent because men who build and protect empires don't ask for attention. They simply take it. Derek's brow furrowed in confusion. Issa's smile stiffened like it had been painted on. Malcolm's gaze moved slowly across the ballroom, then stopped on me. There's someone in this room tonight, Malcolm said, his voice carrying, without effort, who has been treated as an afterthought. Discomfort rippled through the guests. People shifted in their seats like the temperature had dropped. This past year, he continued, my company stood on the edge of complete failure, weeks from collapse. I didn't broadcast it. I didn't seek sympathy. I needed solutions. He paused, letting the silence build, and someone provided one. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. A strategist, Malcolm said. A professional who never asked for a spotlight. Never requested credit. Never demanded a single meeting. She rebuilt the foundation beneath our feet, while the rest of us were still arguing about whether the cracks were real. He turned, facing my table directly now. And tonight, he said, I watched that same woman get minimized, mocked, dismissed by people who should have been proud to know her. Issa's face drained of color. Derek's expression shifted as the pieces began assembling themselves in his mind, one by one. Malcolm's voice lowered, but somehow grew heavier. That ends now. He looked directly at me. Karen Mathers, he said, clearly enough that there could be no confusion. "Thank you." The room went silent, not the awkward silence of a mistake, but the exposed silence of a truth no one can unsee. "Thank you for saving my company," Malcolm continued, "for protecting my family's legacy, and for conducting yourself with a level of integrity I wish more people in this room carried." Then he sat down. No dramatic flourish. No swelling music. Just reality, spoken aloud where everyone could hear it. For the first time in my memory, my family didn't know where to look. My father leaned back like he wanted the chair to swallow him whole. My mother gripped her champagne glass so tightly I thought the stem might snap. Issa stared at me like she had just discovered I'd been living an entire life. She never bothered to notice. No one applauded. Not because they doubted him, because applause requires comfort, and no one in that room was comfortable anymore. I stood. Not dramatically, not angrily, just finished. "I think that's my cue," I said quietly, more to myself than to anyone listening. As I walked past Issa's table, she opened her mouth like she might finally say something real. She did in single quotes T. Malcolm followed me toward the entrance. He stopped beside me in the warm glow of the hallway and spoke like a man who never wasted words on things that didn't matter. "I wanted to meet you months ago," he said. "You declined every invitation." "I did," I replied. He nodded slowly. "I understand why now." After a moment, he added, "You deserved far better than what happened in there tonight." I met his eyes. I'm used to it. His expression tightened, not with pity, not with guilt, with respect. "You shouldn't have to be," he said quietly. "And for what it's worth, you're exactly the kind of person I want my son to learn from." That was all. I didn't return for dessert. I didn't stay for the forced laughter that always follows an uncomfortable truth. I walked out into the cool night air. Salt in it from the distant coast stand breathed deeply, like I'd been holding my breath for years without realizing. I drove to the small inn I booked 10 miles from the venue. No wedding guests, no family, no noise. Just quiet wooden beams, clean white sheets, and the kind of silence you earn when you finally stop begging to be understood. I removed my heels slowly, unpinned my hair, poured water into a glass, and sat beside the window, watching moonlight spill across the vineyard. Hills. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt light, because the truth was simple. I didn't need that room to love me. I didn't need Issa to validate me. I didn't need my parents to suddenly see me. After all these years. But I did need one thing. I needed the lie to end. And it had without me ever raising my voice. The next morning, a thick envelope arrived at my office. Handwritten address. No return label. But I recognized the neat, disciplined script immediately. "Karen," the letter began. "Discretion is rare. Integrity is rarer. My family owes you far more than we could ever express publicly. Consider this not repayment, but recognition long overdue." Inside was a formal card, board appointment. Wittridge Holdings. He leaned back in my chair and released a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. Not because I needed the title, because it confirmed something I had spent years trying to remember on my own. Quiet doesn't mean small. Invisible doesn't mean insignificant. Some people only respect what they can display, what they can frame and hang on walls, what they can announce at parties. But real work doesn't require an audience to matter. I didn't call my parents. I didn't respond to Issa's text, a clumsy half apology dressed up as humor. As if cruelty becomes harmless when you pretend it was always a joke. I opened my desk drawer instead, the one where I keep reminders of who I am when the world gets too loud. My very first business card. A faded sticky note I wrote to myself years ago. "Stay sharp. Stay soft." A photograph of the first office I ever rented, barely bigger than a closet. And now, Malcolm's letter. Not proof that I mattered to them. Proof that I had always mattered. And the best part? I never had to fight for a seat at their table. I built my own.